what percentage of your sphere of influence are homeowners? Now we're going to start separating things out, right? Now we start sifting through. Now we start filtering. What percentage would you say? And generally, just so you know what happens in real estate, if you're not to be ageist, but if you're younger, you're going to see that your ownership percentage of sphere of influence is going to start almost negative because none of your peer groups own a home. But as you start getting older, you're going to start seeing that rises. I mean, it just makes sense, right? So as you start growing older, a lot of your sphere, a lot of the people that you hang around with, they end up purchasing homes, building, creating families and things of that nature. So I'm not telling you anything revolutionary, but it's something that as we start working through these questions, you're going to see how practical it becomes to actually generate business through just our sphere of influence. Around 500 in my CRM, 25% rows. So you're saying 25% of your database have a home, so they're homeowners. Joe, I would say about 50% of my database. Awesome. So those are you that are arriving after the first question. So the question was, how many folks are in your sphere of influence? Just getting you in the mindset of seeing who we're actually going to be working with, and then what percentage of them actually have a home. So what percentage of your database has a home? And here's the killer. This is actually what it ends up getting all of the trifecta that I mentioned earlier: lead acquisition, lead conversion, and then scaling our business. This is a question that we're trying to get to. Do you have what percentage of your database? Let me rephrase that because I wrote it down wrong. What percentage of your database do you have mailing addresses on? I see Rose smiling. All the
homeowners?
So this is really where ideally homeowners, I mean, that's really, when we start deconstructing it, yeah, it would be homeowners, but now I kind of went back broad in your entire database. 80%, whoa. Awesome. Carrie, 85%. Selena, 80%. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. So let me ask some questions. So there's a purpose. I already see it. So Selena or Carrie, that is high. Now it's a good thing. That's a good thing. Statistically, you're going to have about 50 to 60% on good days. So what are you doing with the mailing addresses that you were very mindful of generating that mailing address or capturing that mailing address?
I usually grab it when I do, like if it's, let's say they're coming into as a buyer or even as a seller, I'll grab, well, of course, the seller, you're going to get the address for the CMA, right? But for the buyer side, I always get it when I'm doing the consultation, their current home address. And then, whenever they buy it, update it with the home address that they purchased. But then every year, at certain times of the year, Christmas, Easter, sometimes 4th of July and Halloween, I'll drop off little things just as a thank you, just to stay present in front of them. So that's the purpose of the addresses for me.
That's awesome. So not only do we have the addresses, which is a big exercise that we're going to go through today, but you're actually leveraging them. That's incredible. Awesome. Thank you. Carrie, I'm not sure if your mic is on. I don't see where you're at. If you're at a place to do so, could you unmute and share a little bit about what you do with those addresses?
Good morning. I pretty much use those addresses
to send out monthly mailers to the people that, are in my CRM. I haven't gotten as far as the previous talker, to drop off little things, because that is a good idea to do. But I try to capture the address, like once I do a buyer consultation. Also, like when I do open houses, or if anybody asks me for information about the buying process, I always try to capture, of course, first, last name, address, and telephone number, and email.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what do you typically send them? You mentioned you're doing it monthly.
I send out monthly postcards, especially like recipes, postcards, doing a market analysis. It varies based on the company that I use to send the mailer. So it's whatever, when I go through their database, whatever that, capture my interest, and I send those out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congrats.
Especially now with the holidays are coming up, I sent some out for Halloween. So of course, this month we got Thanksgiving. Then of course you got New Year's and Christmas. So I'm actually going to start working on those probably next week.
I dig it. I dig it. I dig it. Well, we'll talk about what to send them in our time today. Let's see. Joe, with your mailing addresses, what do you do?
So usually what I try to do, especially like with initial meetings or consultation, is get their address, and then I immediately after the first meeting, I send them like a thank you card or something like that. And I always feel like I've had a lot of success. People will text me, say, "Oh, we got your card. Thank you so much." Kind of sets the tone, makes you look professional. So that's like the first thing. And then I send a monthly item of value to my whole database. So that's why I try to get people's addresses.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So as you can see, the folks that are, and we'll talk about how to get these percentages higher, but the question was, of your database, what percentage of that what percentage of your database do you have mailing addresses on? So we'll talk about how to actually get mailing addresses in a very simple way, non-salesy, non-creepy or anything like that. So we'll actually increase this, and then we'll also wanted to give you an idea of what our peers are doing right now with those addresses. So you heard thank you cards immediately after a consultation. I think that's something every agent should be doing. In my opinion, that's where our local sales team, ooh, there we go. That's what's up, D Jones. So that's what we teach here. It's, that blue one, I think you got that from Amazon, no? That blue box?
No, I went to Hallmark. Literally,
Oh, okay.
Found them on Hallmark.
Awesome. Awesome. So those bulks, I mean, those are inexpensive, right? Though that's especially if you get them from Amazon. I mean, D got them from Hallmark. That doesn't matter where you get them, but essentially for less than $1, less than $1, you already stand out head and shoulders above everybody else. So just thinking about that way. So thinking about, this is why it becomes more of a conversion strategy, depending on what part of our conversation we have today. For less than $1, well, think about what happened. You got your license, you're paying all these fees to your brokerage, to the association, to the MLS, to your e-key, to whatever, right? So you know your fixed expenses. On top of that, your marketing expenses. Some of you run a lot of ads. Some of you spend a lot of money on video marketing. And I'm not judging either way. Like, I'm just saying that there's an expense, right? So your expense to get in front of these opportunities, it could be $10 to $20, or it could be $100 to $200, it could be $1,000. We'll talk about our numbers probably in December as we get into the business planning portion of this, but we spend so much up front. There's certain things that we can do once we have that up at bat. That's for less than $1. You already spent $50 to get in front of that person. Why not go to that additional dollar, spend that additional dollar, and really secure that business? Right. So that's that little nuance, that little cut above. But anyway, I'm starting to preach a little bit, so I'll back off for a second. I'm going to drop in the chat how we can get, especially in the season that we're in or about to go into, how we can get everybody's mailing address instantly. So I would love to see those 30s, those 40s, those 50% go up to 75% and above, just with this very simple text. And I'll read it for those that are not seeing the chat. But basically, going to your sphere of influence and texting them or DMing them, hey, how are you? I'm updating my database for Christmas cards. What's your best mailing address? Right. So we have a holiday that most folks, whether they celebrate it or not, they understand that that's part of the culture. So we have a major event coming up here in 7-8 weeks. So this is normal. No one's going to bat an eye, right? So it's an opportunity to use this basically as an excuse to backfill your database, right? Does that make sense? So what we're doing here is trying to get as many mailing addresses as possible for another strategy that we'll talk about here very shortly. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody had that text. So I'll read it one more time again, those that are not in the chat. Hey, how are you? I'm updating my database for Christmas cards. What's your best mailing address? Right. So this is something that the address in and of itself is going to let us know a lot of things. If there's an apartment number, well, they're renting, obviously. For the most part, I understand all these condos and stuff. We can, depending on the relationship, you can go ahead and ask them. Another way to ask it would be, hey, just so, hey, on my database, I like categorizing based off of homeowners or future homeowners. Where do you fall? Right. So if you wanted to take it to that next step, if you absolutely wanted to, I'm not saying this particular strategy, we need to do it like that. We just need to get it into a habit of our sphere of influence, whether we have 50 or 500 people. This is an opportunity for us to really love on these folks, that if we can get a few people that are going to refer us business forever and for always, we're going to call that a career.